let's go through the basics, okay? What's Python? Have you ever heard about Python? Well, Python is a programming language. I think you all know that. Now, we're gonna go through how to install Python. I'm gonna show you how to install the basic IDE for Python. If you go here to any browser of your preference, we can go to Python. We just search python.com.org in this case, right there. Okay, now you can go to downloads and then you just click here. I have Python. That's it. It's really easy. Now, going back to our code. Okay, now I'm going to talk about you. Why are we looking Python instead of C++, Java, any other language? Python is the best programming language to start. Okay, yeah?
And also the most easier one.
Yeah, it's easy. Python is easy. It's not the easiest because technically Scratch is a programming language, but it's easy. For you to start, it's really easy. Now, I wanted to talk about a little bit about myself. Who? I have been 3 years in the Institute of Technology of Costa Rica. I course a lot of programming courses, and I also have I took a course, like a professional course for Python. So I'm certificated. Okay, so I think I can manage to give you an introductory class. In any other case, okay, yeah. So we see now this. What is this? You may ask. Now I'm going to show you how to do a new project. We go here, we're gonna go to new, and then we go to, oh, sorry, wait. Here, recent projects. Okay. Wait. Scratching a little bit. Okay, here. We're gonna go to new project. That's a place you put the name. Could be Python project, could be whatever. The location. It's really important to search a good location for your project because it will get a little bit tricky if you put it in your desktop. Maybe some files get out. Maybe you can put something by accident. So it's better to make a folder for your projects. Now, down here you can see the Python version. The Python version is 3.9.5. That's the latest version for PyCharm. So we could use that one. In this case, I'm not going to create another project because it's not necessary because I already have mine. So if I go here to crash course, we can see the project. Okay, now I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. You can see it correctly, right? Yeah. Okay, here you see the main. This is the basic code that you will find when you create a new project in PyCharm. Every project on PyCharm, you can put this into it. You just need to check a box if you want a main file. That's what you're gonna ask you. In this case, if we run it right here, we can see that hi PyCharm. That's what we get, right? Right here, hi PyCharm. This is an easy, a simple project with a def and if statement. In this case, this is the runner, this is the def. Okay, now, what's a def? Does anyone know what's a def? Well, in this case, def is a function, okay? You can imagine def as a book, okay? Def is a book. So what do you do with books? If you want a book, you search for the book, right? For the name of the book. And then you grab it, you can read it, right? Def work similar. If you want to run a def, you need to use here you go. If you want to run a def, oh yeah, sorry. You want to run a def, you need to call it. Here I have the first code you're probably going to do in your entire life. That is a hello world code. Here you have the def, hello world. This is the name of the function. Then print hello world. Then what is this? Well, I'm calling the book. I'm calling hello world, the function. So if I call this, this is going to happen. In the other case, we can do it without the function. We can just say print hello world. And when we run it right here, we will get hello world and hello world again. But wait, why would I do this if I can do this? Because it's more proper, more elegant if you do just a function. If you see here, you have the function, the print, and the hello world, right? Well, if you want to add something, you can add it inside of the function. Instead here, you can't add anything else, just the print. Well, if you have never programmed before, do you feel that something is missing here? Maybe Sander, you know how to program. Tell me what's missing here. Well, not quite. Here, you're missing something that is really important. Yeah.
Brackets.
No, because that's in another language.
Semicolons.
No. Okay, it's really easy. If you see here, we are missing something that is really interesting. Something that a good programmer we're not going to run it completely, but a good programmer would do. Okay? And what is it? A good programmer would document this code. I'm gonna tell you a little story, okay? In my first year in tech, I had a professor named Milton. He was the director of my career. And he told us how to be good programmers. And a good programmer needs to have a proper layout and document. Why is that necessary? Someone of you know why you need to document your code? Yeah.
Because if not, it might be lost.
Yeah,
So other people can understand it and maybe yourself in the future.
exactly. If you document your code, anyone can understand your code. That's what you want, because you're probably going to work on your code once or maybe twice, but you don't know how many other people would work on your code. So if someone else is going to see this, if they don't know Python in this case, then you probably are not going to understand what does this do. So you document it. It doesn't need to be bunch of a text. It could be just an easy heads up. So here, this is a documentation. You should do this in all your projects, remember. And what does it do? What does this function do? This function is a function that prints. That's it. Because what happens if I change anything inside the print? It still works. It's still a function that prints, right? So anyone can understand what does this do. It's really easy and it's really important. Also, maybe you think, well, isn't print a function too? Well, it actually is. The thing is, the difference between the def and the print is that the function def is function that you make. You're probably going to make a def, a function, a book, if you want it to do something in specific. Print is just only going to print always, but def is like an open book, right? Remember I told you that earlier? Well, also, we have something really important. We have class. But what is a class? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, it's just that you're mentioning things, but you're not defining things. Okay, you tell us to document, but how do you document?
Oh,
Isn't this hashtag thing? And
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I know, but like you mention it
Well,
for us that don't know.
That's an excellent question. If anyone is wondering how to do something and you don't find it here, you can ask me, okay? So an open class, yeah.
So, you have a function, right? How do you define the limits, or like, where does the function end or like break?
Oh,
Like, you don't have it like,
Yes.
you don't have the,
huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You okay, maybe you can put parentheses, but in this case, if you see this space here, that means print is inside of that. Instead, hello world, the color is not with this space, so it's not inside of that. It's a visual thing. You can express it with brackets, but it's not necessary. You don't need to do that. Okay. Now, yeah, I was explaining class. Do any one of you know what's a class?
It's like something that defines objects. Like it can define like an object in a way that you can construct various objects.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. But the thing is, for you to understand classes, you need an easier explanation. Yeah,
It's like the library of books.
exactly.
Imagine like a
It's-
formula. It's just like a formula to build objects.
Yeah, it's not a library,
Exactly.
but
Use it for the.
for terms for you to understand it, a class is like a bookshelf. So you put the functions inside of a class. So you put your books inside of a bookshelf. Okay? We're not going to get too deep into this until the next course that we're going to use that a lot in C++. Well, now we're going to see, okay. We're going to see statements. Do you know what a statement is? Oh yeah, sorry. Forgot. Okay. Oh, sorry. Wait, no, we need to go to data variables. Right there. Okay. Does any one of you know what a data variable is? Yeah, of course you know. Okay, we have, huh? Yeah, we have a lot of data variables. We have, here we can see integers, floats, strings. Right down here is it's a Boolean. Okay. Do you know what an integer is? Well, with this, can you tell what an integer is?
Just.
Exactly. Integers are numbers, positive numbers. Whole numbers. Yeah, great. Because if we don't have if we don't have a whole number, it's a float. You can put decimal number here, negative numbers too. Yeah. Floating point. Good, good. You know it.
Yeah, it explains the precision
Yeah.
that you want.
So we have floats, we have integers, and we have strings. You know what's a string? String's really fun. Okay. A string is a text. Okay. Just a text. If you put a number inside of a string, it's going to take it as a text. If you want to make, let's say, a CTP chat, it's a text message inside your computer. If you do that, you're probably going to use strings, because if you send messages, you're probably going to send them in a text way, in a text variable. So you can use strings. You see, strings are a sequence of characters, but with strings, it's not this. The strings does not work as a number like ints, because if you use integers, you can do math. If you use floats, you can do math with it. If you use strings, you can't do math. Yeah. Okay.
Wait, how do you, I'm going to assume that in order for you to identify the difference between a function and a class and a string, the fact that you're using quotation.
So what?
No, for defining a string,
it's
we
like
use.
You're
Oh.
writing, if I write name, I could perfectly say that's a string, right?
Yeah.
But you're not. The name is a function,
I'm going to.
and you create Alice
name
because you're using,
That's correct. I'm going to talk about that when we go back to the hello world, because I just want you to know the data variables before explaining you how does it work. In this case, we can see strings and also booleans. Okay? You know what a boolean is? Have you ever seen the matrix scene with ones and zeros with the green background and things? Yeah, that's really similar to this. Have you ever heard about binary code?
It's
Okay, nice. So you probably know what a Boolean is. A Boolean, it's one, and zero. You know the value of one? What does one mean? Yeah?
Yes.
No.
Is this the
True. Exactly. Booleans define their value as numbers, just 1 and 0. If you put any other number and you establish it as Boolean, it's going to take it as a 1, as a true. Any number instead of 0. So this one is true, and this one is false. This, maybe you ask, why does this thing work? Where are we going to use this? Well, actually, when we see loops, we're probably going to use this thing because you can set values that are true or false with Booleans. Okay, now we're going to go back just for a moment. We can go to the hello world and we're going to talk deeper inside the functionality of print. Okay, if you see print here, we already know what this prints, right? If we run it right here, you see here, bye, and hello world again. Here, print bye, and print hello world again. Okay, now, if you see this is actually a string. It's a notebook character, right? Well, if you see this quotes right here, this is the thing that makes a string, this what defines these things inside of the quotes as text, as straight text. So now when you print by, it's going to detect it as text. Let's do this, okay? Imagine I take out the code, the quotes. You see now we got a red underline and we got an error mark right here. So if we run it, okay, does anyone know what's going to happen when we run it?
Well, it's not going to
So it's gonna,
write nothing.
it's gonna search for like a function by, but we haven't defined it, so it's gonna have an error, right?
Exactly. So now when we run it, we get an error. Okay? Trace back.
Yeah, I think by is not defined.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's taken by as a function because we can print some functions here. The thing is that by for us, we want it to be a text. So if we want it to be a text, we put the quotes, right? Like this. Now, by is green, we don't have error flags, and we get by right down here. Okay, now we're going to get to the fun part. We're going to get to the statements. Have you ever heard about ifs, elifs, else? Yeah, of course you do. But if we see here, we have an input. Okay, remember? We have something right here, the input, something that is going inside of your code and then is processed by your code, and we got an output. An output could be anything. An output could be this by, this hello world. This is an output, and the input is the text or the run or whatever. In this case, we're gonna set the input as a question, like enter the current temperature in degrees in Celsius. That's going to be our input, and our output will be a print, either this, any one of these 4 prints. So that's going to be our output. Okay, let's see here a little bit deeper into the code. Temperature equal float. Remember what a float is?
it's a number that doesn't.
Exactly. Then input, enter the current temperature in Celsius. Let me tell you something. We're not going to get too deep in how the code works because I don't want you to understand exactly how to do this. Because if you sit a little bit and you try to do this, you're gonna get it. But we need to learn the basics for us to learn C++ in the next course. Okay? But right here, we have conditional logic using if, elif, and else. Okay? just really, okay? If temperature, that is an input, is bigger than 30, print it's a hot day, stay hydrated. An elif is another if, it's like an if. So elif 20 is less or equal to temperature, and temperature is less or equal to 30, the weather is nice and warm. Here it is the same thing. It's a bit chilly, and then else. Else are really fun, you know? Because if neither of these three match their respective conditional, you're gonna get else. Okay? So if any of these three happen, we're gonna get the else in any other case. Okay? So now we're going to run this. Okay. Enter the current temperature in Celsius. Anyone?
27.
27. Okay. Before I put the input, what will be the output if I put 27?
The weather is nice.
Yeah,
The weather is nice and warm. Exactly, because the input will be in middle of these two values. So let's see if you're correct. Let's put 27. The weather is nice and warm. Yeah.
so if instead of elif, we use just if, it would start creating other if statements and like if it starts, you start making it with if and you end it with else. But if you want to add more conditions in between, you have to name them elif. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
For order. The thing is, in C++, we don't use ellipse. Normally,
You just do else.
no, we normally just use if.
Oh,
But I want you to understand all the conditional there are in Python because Python is an excellent base for C++. In this case, this thing is really important. So if you want to take notes, this is what you need. Okay, now we're going to go to, we're going to go to loops. Have you ever known what a loop is? In this case, we have using loop for iterate over a list of fruits. So we have a list, right? I haven't shown you what a list is, but in this case, fruits, that is a list of fruits, is equal to apple, banana, cherry, and mango. Okay? If you see all these four fruits are string. Okay? Now, print list of fruits. So we're gonna print list of fruits, exactly this step. Now, for fruit in fruits, print fruit. Okay, now it's getting a little bit tricky, right? Because where is established fruit? We don't have that, right? Up here, we don't see that, right? But we're establishing it right here for fruit. We're saying that fruit is a new value, a new thing. Now, in fruits, read fruit. What's going to do here? Going to bring fruit, but in this case, fruit is all the fruits, all the strings that are contained in this list. Okay, remember that I told you that in this case, print that this fruit doesn't have quotes, right? Because it's not a string. This fruit is not a string. This fruit is an object that is based on a list. Okay. Now, why fruit is up here? We're gonna yeah.
why is after for in print you say fruit and not fruits? If it like in print list of fruits, we are saying fruits with an S at the end, but here without the S.
Because fruit is another value.
Oh,
Fruit is an object. We're creating the object right here.
okay.
We're not going to get too deep into that, but now I'm going to show you something really fun. Something about good programming. Something about layout. In this case, if you see the hello world, the function is print hello world and then hello world.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
But what happens if we put the color before the function? Do anyone of you know? Yeah? Huh?
It's gonna be error.
Exactly, but why? Why is
Because it runs the code from top to the bottom, right? It scans it from top to bottom, right?
Excellent. In Python, we have our code right here. Imagine our code is like a block. The code will be run top to bottom.
Isn't that always the case? No.
In Python, it is, but in C++, it is not. In C++, the layout is 3 dimensions because we're going to use a lot of files. We're probably going to go file 1 from file 2 and file 2 from file 3, and we can take a look in 3 dimensions. Maybe a function. File 1 is the one that we're going to use in file 11, let's say. But we're going to see that in the next class. But in this case, we're gonna get with the code that is top to bottom. In this case, it is. So if we take the hello world right here, that is the color, and we put it in line 1, you see, we got an error mark. And now, if we run it, we get an error because it doesn't exist yet. This function does not exist. So in the code, we're calling something that haven't been made before.
This hello world record is like a command to execute the that hello world.
Exactly.
But it can't execute if we haven't defined it before, of course.
Now, if we go back to loops, we can take a look to this loop right here. Using break and continue for a loop. We're already seeing loops in the list before, but now you see we're creating a new object here in range 1 to 11. Range is a function, right? The thing is, using break and continue, etc., etc. If we see up here, we are using range loop with range to print numbers 1 through 5. Okay, print numbers 1 to 5. But why the range? It says 1, 6.
Because it includes the number 1 to 6.
No, it's going to include just the numbers 1 through 5. Have you ever seen the brackets in that?
Is it like, if it's like square, like includes it, and if it's like, not square and a regular one, it doesn't include it? And since it only works with integers, right?
Have you ever seen this?
Yeah, but isn't like the second bracket like turned the other way?
No, this means it's open, right? You know that? Have you ever seen that? Yeah, so if this bracket is open and this one is closed, it means that it will take 1. But if this bracket is open, it means that it's not going to take 6, yeah? No, this is a bracket.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I actually don't.
Okay,
Actually,
I've seen it with the brackets and the parentheses that you can.
yeah,
Yeah.
you messed up the second bracket.
Maybe
No.
it's not so.
this thing, okay, maybe you haven't seen that.
Yeah, we have.
But this thing means that in a list, it's not going to take number 6. In this case, works exactly the same. So we got 1, 6. Without the 6, it's going to be 1, 5. So we always add that extra number if we want it to be 5. In this case, if we had changed 6 to 7, it's going to take just the numbers 1 to 6.
It only works with integer, right? It's not gonna take like 5.99, so like the one before is gonna be 5.
Exactly.
Okay, then why for 1 do we not have something, why don't we have,
Because it's closed. So you will take 1.
you will take 1?
But the last number, the 6 in this case, is just going to take it's gonna take it until 5. So
Okay,
if I put 7 here, it's going to take until 6. Okay? It's really important. Now, it's going to print number from range 1 to 5, right? So when we print number, that is a new object right here, it's going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's how it's going to work. If you want, we run it. You can see right here, numbers 1 through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then here you can see the list of fruits that I told you earlier. But here, using break for break and continue in a loop. Okay, we have break and continue. These are new variables, new functions that we can use. So if number equals 5, print, skip number 5, then continue. Then if number equals to 8, it's going to break. But what we have here, for number range 1 to 11, how many numbers is it going to take? If it's 11.
10.
Exactly, right. We're getting into something. Now, if you see here, we have another statement. We already saw statements before. So if number is equivalent to 5, it's going to skip number 5. But if number is equivalent to 8, it's going to break. Okay, general question. How in this function, let's say, in this function, how many numbers are going to be printed? Yep.
I don't know.
So it's gonna be 8 numbers, but the other 2, they're just gonna be this text that says print something.
Now, if you see here, looping through numbers with a break and continue, it's going to print 1 through 5, 1 through 4. Then, if number is equal to 5, it's going to skip number 5. So it's skipping number 5. Then 6, 7, and then if number is equal to 8, print breaking loop in number 8. It's going to break and exit the loop completely, and it's going to break number 8.
And it stops.
And it stops.
Uh,
Okay? It's really
if
easy.
we define range beyond 11, it's not gonna do anything else.
Now, we're gonna see while loops. For me, this is actually a loop. The fours that we saw before are more like statements than loops, in my opinion. There. But here, we can see using a while loop to print numbers until a condition is met. Okay? So we're dealing with conditions now. We're here going to establish that counter is equal to 1, right? Okay, then print counting up to 5 using a while loop. While counter is less than 6, less or equal than 6, print counter. Counter plus or plus 1. If you see this thing that is plus equal, it's because that's how math in Python works. If you're gonna use the plus sign, you should put an equal. It's like
Increment.
yeah, it's
Increment of the variable.
yeah, it's increment. It's you don't always need to use this. If you're adding 2 different variables, you don't need the equal sign, but in this case, if you're adding just a number, you need them. Okay, now, while counter is less than 6, print counter, then it's going to add 1 to the counter, and so this counter will turn into 2. And then it's going to run it again. So while counter is, in this case, 2, is less or equal to 6, print counter, so it's going to print 2. Then counter plus 1, so now the counter is.
Why would it do it again instead of just, okay, so why instead of like reading it once, going, okay, counter plus 1, and then or 2 and it stops. Why instead of that it continues, it loops again? Why does it do that?
Because we're setting here a condition. While counter is less or equal than 6, it's going to keep going. So
By definition, a while is something that sets me into a loop.
yeah, exactly. We're seeing while loop. In this case, the code is going to be running all over again until it gets to 6. When it gets to 6 and the condition is met, the while is going to break and it's going to stop. If we run it right here, we will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 to 6. 1 to 6. Because it's going to run until it gets to 6. Now, if we
But every time it's still gonna print it, right?
yeah. So now we're going to change it to 7. What's going to happen? It's going to print 1, 2, 7. You see? Because it's going to break when it gets to 7. Now, have you ever heard of the Fibonacci sequence? Any one of you? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. I took some time and I make you example of a Fibonacci sequence using a while loop. In this case, we have the 2 starting Fibonacci sequence. For anyone that doesn't know, the Fibonacci sequence works this way. We have the 0, that is the first number. Then we have the 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. And it continues infinitely. Okay? It's really easy. So the first 2 numbers are 1 and 0. Now, let's start the loop. Okay, we have 2 functions here, okay? We have this one that is going to print the Fibonacci sequence up to 1,000, and this one that is going to print 100 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. If you read it here, could you tell me again, what does this function do? This here, while. What does this function do? Yeah, but it will print 1,000 numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 1,000 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, or it's going to print until the Fibonacci sequence gets to 1,000.
So the Fibonacci sequence gets
Exactly.
because of the
No, tell me.
yeah, because of the defining while, right?
Yeah, because you're defining A as one of the variables of the Fibonacci sequence, and it's the first variable to the Fibonacci sequence. So if you add A plus B, and then you're setting that A and B are this equation, then the 0 is going to increment in this value. So the next A will be 1. Then the next A will be 3.
Okay, stupid question.
Yeah.
Why is it the next A, not the next B? Because B is also something that was before.
Oh, because A is the first number. In this case, A is 0. So if you put B, it's going to crash before, like way before that it gets 1 to 1,000. Because if B gets to, let's say, I think the last number is 987. The last B is like 400 something. So you will get the 400. You are not going to get the 900. So the closest to 1,000 in this case, in the Fibonacci sequence, is the position A. Okay. Now,
But it could be either of them depending on what my goal is, right?
yeah, if you want to see, I can show you. Okay, we have here to 100 to 1,000. So the last B is 610, right?
Yeah, but the next one is A. So it's like A, B, A, B, A, B.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if we change this to B and run it, you see the last number?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, that's one.
Okay. Now, tell me, what does this do? Anyone? You. Tell me, what does the function do?
Basically,
It's somehow gonna keep the count of how much numbers I print the output, but how do we do that?
No, it's going to do this. You see, 0 is the first number of the Fibonacci sequence. 1 is the second.
Yeah, so it does the count.
So it's going to print 100 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. So if you see here, count is 0 because now we're not taking A as the value. We're taking count. So it's going to add 1 to the count. Each time it's going to loop. So it's going to loop 100 times because count needs to be less than 100.
That's genius.
Yeah, have you seen that? That's crazy. So now, if you see that, we print 100 first of the Fibonacci numbers. So we can see here the 100 numbers. This is the last one. Now, if you see this, why is 100? Why don't we put 1 million? Why don't we
It's
put?
gonna get too big. I don't.
The thing is that the code is based on your computing power. Because this Python program is not a game. This is using the resources from your computer to run. So if we put here, let's say 1 million,
It's gonna.
if you have an awesome PC, it's going to run. It's going to take a while, but it's going to run. But some laptops can't handle that much processing. Now,
Is there also like a 32-bit or 64-bit integer limit? Is there something like that here?
yeah, it is. There are, yeah, but we're not going to get into deep to that. Okay. Now, we're going to see an OOP. Have you ever heard what an OOP is? In this case, I'm just gonna zoom it just a little. Okay. Wait. Let me write it. OOP.
Open-oriented program.
No, it's not open.
Object.
No, it's object-oriented programming. What is object-oriented programming? Well, if you're using a laptop, if you have a cell phone, if you have a digital watch, if you have a calculator, you're using something that is object-oriented programming because it's programming oriented to any type of object. Let's say if you have a calculator, you're doing math in your calculator, but the calculator is programmed to do math, right? But its main focus is to be in a device that we call a calculator, right? So it's a program that is oriented to be inside of a calculator. That's our object-oriented programming. And why don't we care about OOP? Well, in this club, we're gonna work in robotics, right? So that's object-oriented programming. We're gonna program to put the code inside of a device, okay? In this case, inside of a robot. I have an example here of an object-oriented programming. This one is actually really easy and I made it, but we're going to look function by function what's the use of in each one. We're gonna just talk, okay? I'm gonna explain to you every function in a easy way, okay? If you see the first one, I'm gonna bring the. If you see the first one, create employee, creates an employee object represented as a dictionary with a name, position, and salary keys. Please don't ask any questions about this code because we're going to see it through. I don't want you to know how to do this, okay? You can learn by yourself, but this is just an introductory course, and I want you to just know what does it do, okay? So employee work. Employee work prints out a message indicating the employee work activity. Then increase salary calculates the salary increase by percentage. Then we have create a manager that reuses create employee to create a position that we call manager. Then manager work to manager role, it gives a work. And create developer reuses the create employee to create a position called developer, and then developer code prints the message to a specific developer using code. So it's not hard, okay? It's just some functions. I'm gonna send you this file when we finish, but don't get stressed, okay? Don't worry. I don't want you to know how to do this. I just want you to understand what's a capability of a program, okay? In this case, this code. If we see here, we have two different persons. We have Alice and Bob. Alice is winning $90,000 and Bob is winning $60,000. In this case, we can see that Alice is a manager and Bob is a developer. You see that fair? You see that $30,000 gap? Well, if we run this code, let's say, okay, Alice is managing the team, Bob is working, Bob is writing code. Enter the percentage to increase Bob's salary. How much do you want to increase Bob's salary? I think Bob is the developer, right? Yeah, Bob is the developer. Bob is working and writing code. Alice is managing the team. 40%. Is Alice actually doing something? No, Alice is not doing anything. Alice is just standing there. Bob is working. So how much do you want to increase Bob's salary?
Like 30,000.
No,
Go on.
40%. Okay. So because it's in percentage, okay? 40%. Okay, excellent. We see here that Bob's salary from 60,000 is get an increased amount of 24,000, and now the new salary is $84,000. So now Bob is making some money, but it's still less than Alice, right? That's crazy. So now enter the percentage to increase Ali's salary. Do you think this manager deserves $90,000? Or do we decrease Ali's salary?
Yeah.
You're so glad.
I think we should decrease it. So let's put a minus here, okay? Let's put minus 40.
Wait, but isn't it working with integers, and because of that, it can't use a negative one, or it can't use a negative one? Well,
We use it float.
What's a float? Come on. What's a float?
that's the thing I understood the least.
It's a data variable. It's a type of data.
Yeah, it's a type of data variable. If you want,
That allows us to use.
it's
Decimal.
negative numbers or decimals.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Can it be a negative decimal?
Yeah, it could be a negative decimal. Okay, so now we can see the base salary of Alice is 90K. Now the increased amount is negative 36K. And now the new salary is 54K. I see this more fair. If Bob is working, I think Alice deserves a decrease in her salary. Now,
Just because of the.
yeah, exactly. Now, we're going to do something fun here, okay? If you see here, we have a class, create an employee, create manager, lead team, the main, okay? But before we get into that, I'm gonna show you the layout, okay? Remember what I told you about good programmer? Another thing that a good programmer does is have a good layout. So imagine your code is based on blocks, right? I'm gonna write it right here. It's based on blocks. Let's say 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, and 4 blocks. So this is your code, right? We're dividing it by blocks. In the first block, we have our imports. What is an import? An import is a library that you're bringing to your code so you can work with more functions. In this case, we can import math, for example. If you import math, you can use that import to make more complex calculations inside of Python. So the first thing in a layout that we need right here on top of our code is the imports. Then in that same block, we're going to define constants that we're going to use inside all the rest of our code. Okay, we need to define it right here. If there's a constant that you're going to define, example, max let's say data. Okay, data is a constant. We're saying that it's a list. In this case, we're setting right here because we're going to use data for the rest of our code. Now, in the second section, we're going to use the main function definitions. Okay? Now, here we're going to define things. Just defining, just putting, let's say, fetch data, process data, anything that functions that you make in your code is going to go in the second block. Functions that you make for the rest, for the functions that are going to work in your code. Okay? Now, in the third part, we have the main. You would wonder, what's a main? Well, a main is the place that all your functions that you've made in the second block are going to be called. Here in the main, you call all the functions, okay? But you don't run these functions in main. You run them in the fourth block. In the fourth block, that it's the runner. If you see this thing right here, it means that you can play this, you can run this. And what does this run? The main. So this one is your runner. Okay, now we already went to all the 4 sections of our code, but we're missing one thing, the documentation and the comments. You never are going to code and while documenting, because you're not sure if you document your code while you're doing it, you're not sure if the code is going to work at the end. You don't know if all the things that you do, all of these things are going to properly work. You don't know that. So you document until you are sure that those things are going to work. Well, going back to the OOP here, practice. Okay, I don't want you to code this or give me a full in-depth explanation of what is this. But I want you to tell me, what do you think each of these functions do? In this case, we're going to take this class as a whole bookshelf. So these 2 books, these 2 functions are inside the class employee. Okay? So I'm going to ask you one by one. What did this class do? Let's say work. It's going to give you the name, employee, and the thing that it's working. Now get promotion. It's going to do the same. Going to put the name, you got a promotion, salary. It's just pretty easy. It's the code that we looked before. In this case, we have create employee. Tell me, what does create employee do?
We're gonna first fetch the name of the person
Yeah,
and the salary.
yeah.
And after that, we're gonna return the name, and then we're gonna assign the actual name of the person, and then we're gonna add the type. The type is gonna be the salary, and then the amount of the salary.
Exactly. But if you see here, you have name and salary. You have never seen these inside of a function, right? It's because we're establishing that we're working with name and salary. When you call this function, create employee, when you call create employee, you need to give the function a name and a salary. Okay? So each time you call create employee, you need to give create employee a name and a salary. That's why these things are inside this parentheses. Okay? Now, we have create manager. That is exactly the same thing of create employee. We have a team, a lead team. Okay? That is exactly the same as this thing up here. Then we print employee.work and print lead team and employee got promotion. But here, if you see EMP1, we're giving the name and the salary. Remember I told you before, we need to give the function a name and a salary. This is the function we saw before, create employee. We're giving create employee a name and a salary. In the case of creating manager, we're giving the name, the salary, and the team size. You see right here, this is the variable that we give to the function when we were made in it. Okay? Now, we're gonna do something really fun. And I want you all to take at least a piece of paper or something, okay? Now, if you see right here, let me make it bigger. Okay, do you remember what this says? Make a simple if-else statement. You must add an input within a specific data variable, okay? The thing is, I don't believe that you can do this right now. Maybe some of you don't bring any laptop. Maybe you haven't been paying attention or taking good notes. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to explain to you what is something that is called pseudocode, okay? It's coding without actually coding. You can write this, let's say, make a simple if-else statement, add an input in a specific data variable, okay? In this case, let's say we're gonna make an input. So we just write input. Okay, right. So we put the thing that we're going to ask here in the input, right? Then we put the def. Okay? We put the name of the def and we put the parentheses. Now we're gonna set our statements. We have the if, the else, with each respective limits, like, yeah, and the respective output or print in the if. In the else statement, you're just going to put a print, okay? And where does the data variable go? Well, the data variable is going right before the input. So let's say we're gonna say an int. Okay, you see this? You think that this will work if I just copy this exact thing? Well, it's not going to work. That's pseudocode. It's code that is not actually going to work, but you're just writing it. So you can understand what you're going to do inside your code. So I want you to do this thing in your piece of paper, and we're going to discuss it. Okay? I give you 3 minutes, let's say, to do a pseudocode of this prompt. I already explained how to do it, just add the variables and the thingies. I wanted to show you a project of OOP, another one, so you can see a deeper function of the code, okay? If we run this one, I'm not going to get it, I'm not gonna get all over it at all.
Why don't you give us a list of codes to make?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you this.
Or is it defined?
Okay, I'm gonna bring it up. Okay, do you see the screen, right? Do you see the frame?
Yeah.
Hi, do you see this ball?
Yeah.
You see, it's tracking. This is code. This is an OOP. You can apply this to a camera, to anything. If you will see, it's drawing a line with the ball because it's a round thing and it's yellow. That's how the code works. Now, if you see this eraser, it's tracking it, but it's not tracking it correctly because it needs to be a circle, a ball. Yeah, exactly. If you see, no. We need to finish the class, okay? I just wanted to show you this because this is an interesting project that could be applied in a lot of things. Imagine a robot that can detect a specific objects as a ball in this case, okay? What? Yeah. Hold on.
Wait, Ian, is that true?
Yeah.
You need to define it in an input that is a string. Why can't you not only put inputs?
No, he put int. Int is integer, not.
Oh, you put int? Yeah, that's why I asked. remove it, you don't need it for the string.
Oh.
Okay,
I understood that.
okay, chill, please, please. Okay, I showed you that thing, right?
Great.
Now, before we end the class, I want to talk about C++. The next course will be really hard, okay? So I need you to be prepared because we're going to see through a project. I already showed you all the basics you can need to understand it, but I don't actually know all the functions that there are in C++. No one does. There are a lot of them. So I'm gonna download a project. I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna study it. And then for the class, we're gonna go through the project all together and we're gonna search what does X function mean? Why does this work in this way? Etc. 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 So the next class will be a little bit more technical and it's going to be a little bit harder. Okay, now I'm going to show you what is Stack Overflow. I'm gonna be real with you. Here, let's say this one. How can I capitalize the first letter of each word in a string? I'm gonna be real with you. Code is not always something that you make. You're probably going to copy code, okay? You're probably going to get code maybe from Stack Overflow, maybe from GitHub, maybe from Gigs. There are a lot of pages. In this case, we see Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, it's like a Facebook for code, okay? If you see here, the person is asking, how can I capitalize the first letter of each word in a string? That's the question he's making. And here you see there's 24 answers. And in this one is the most popular. The dot title method of a string does this. You see, the dot title can capitalize the words. And here's the example. You're probably going to find a lot of information in Stack Overflow, and it's going to work for you a lot. If you are searching for some problem, search it in Google and then put Stack Overflow. There might be a person that has the same struggle as you that he posted in Stack Overflow. Or you can do your own. You can post your issues, or maybe if you're really good at programming, you can answer them. That's a flex, let me tell you. Well, here you can see another example. How do I get a substring of a string in Python? This is a little bit more complicated, but here you can find it. If you have a doubt, you're doing a project, there is something that you want to know, you can go to Stack Overflow. Maybe there are someone that had the same struggle as you, because we are programmers, we all have those struggles. And in this case, let me tell you right now, if you made the prompt, the practice from before, and you got it like almost completely right, you can consider yourself that you're now an official programmer. You make your first code. Excellent, especially you. That was great. So we all made our first code. We can be happy for that. We're already coding Python. Technically, you're all programmers now. So if you're a programmer, you need to know about this horrible thing called GitHub. GitHub is like the database of all code, all projects, almost everything, every project that has been made by a programmer is normally going to be uploaded in GitHub. It's really important to know this because maybe you're searching for a project in a specific. You can find something that's similar, a complete project in here. The thing is, you shouldn't copy projects or code from GitHub No. In this case, we can go here. Let's say hello world from Python. Okay. You see, this is made by Hello. No, by Brian Myers, actually. That here you can see the language is 100% Python. Then you have the activities, the stars, how many people watch it, etc. But you see here we have the files .txt that if we open it, we just got this that it's like the output. But you have this small thing right there. That's our README.
The markdown text.
Every time you do a project, you're going to upload it here or any place. If I'm the one reviewing your work, I hope there is a README because it's the explanation of how me as a person that have never seen your code, how can I run it properly? Okay? You need to put, well, maybe you need to run it in Visual Studio Code. Well, maybe we recommend you to use it in Visual Studio Code. Or you just explain in completion what does the project do. If you see right here, you can see the README. This is a simple Hello World project for Python, which eventually be modified to auto-update itself. When it detects a new version of itself has been pushed to GitHub, just an excuse to learn a bit about Python. Really, to eventually save as jumping off point for new projects. This is a good explanation. That's a complete explanation of a Hello World file. Okay? That is a good explanation. So you always need to add READMEs. In this case, I'm going to show you, just to show how to upload your work. You can see here, new repository or import repository. These are two options. If you have Git installed in your program, as I do, in PyCharm, you can install Git. You can link it to your code. So when you put import repository, it will give you the option of the repository that you already have. But in this case, I'm going to show you how to import a new repository. Here, you set repository name. You want it to be public or private, the description. Then you want, if you have a license for it, if you want a Git norm, and you write your README file. I'm not going to create one because I don't want that in my GitHub, but you get the hang of it. That will be all. That's all that you need to know about Python basic. And I'm really proud of you guys because you already made your first code. Yours are the worst one. Okay, now, any question before we end the class? I think I've already went through all. No one? Yeah,
What was a function?
a function is a def. It's a function that you create yourself.
It's a method.
Yeah, it's a method, but also it can be an actual function that can be print. Let's say super print. If the statements are kind of a function too. Oops. Yeah, but in this case, what you want to know as a function is that because it's the function that you are going to make. Okay? Anything else? Okay, perfect. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you.
See you in chapter 2.
See you in chapter 2.